Greetings and salutations, loyal viewers of this channel. I am back from my trip to Texas. None of you even knew I was away, and now we have to discuss one of the most depressing stories that I've come upon in recent memory. Now, I have a few caveats that I need to give at the beginning of this video because YouTube is YouTube, and who knows, they may delay this like the Duke volleyball story almost a full 2 weeks, and all of the facts and circumstances will change. So, at this point in time, I'm going to refer to the charges as they are now. They can be upgraded later. At this point in time, at the time of me recording this video, I will tell you what is alleged as the motivation of the attacker in this situation. However, that is subject to change in the future, and there is a slight personal connection that maybe could change things a little bit in the future. So, with all that being said, we're going to talk about this story out of North Dakota where it appears a 41-year-old Democrat killed an 18-year-old because he thought he was a part of an extreme Republican extremist group, and he was going to get his extremists to go attack him. Now, if this motive and this rhetoric actually sounds very familiar in terms of recent news, if this sounds like something that maybe some politicians were talking about in recent weeks, then you're not wrong. And we're going to get into all of that, but this video is sponsored. I'm not going to do a goofy transition. We're just going to roll into the ad read and we'll discuss it on the other side. Thank you to our long-term sponsor. Noble Gold CEO Colin Bloom believes that the quantitative tightening that we're seeing from the Fed is actually setting the stage for a gold rally. Sure, in the short term, this will increase the power of the dollar. However, by the time we get around to next year, the Fed is going to want to restart the economy, and the only method that they have is printing more money and injecting it into the system. This means you better be hanging on to something that is hedging against the value of the dollar. Now, if you're thinking about gold and silver as your hedge, I definitely recommend you go over to noblegoldinvestments.com or you call and talk to one of their experts at 877-646-5347, and if you decide to set up a qualifying IRA or 401k with them, you will be gifted an American Eagle 1/10 of an ounce gold coin. That's 877-646-5347 or noblegoldinvestments.com. So the subject of today's video is 41-year-old Shannon Brandt. Now, I want you to look at this man, look at his face, take note of the fact that he's kind of an off-brand version of Andrew from Don't Walk Run Productions, and then move on and follow me through the rest of the story. And Shannon Brandt is alleged to have killed 18-year-old Cayler Ellingson. Now, according to the reports, which by the way come from the Post-Millennial, and they claim their source is either in the police department or in the Department of Corrections, whoever is involved in this case. I don't remember at the time of me recording this video. This all happened after a dispute, which was political in nature, that occurred during a street festival that was happening at the time. And according to the statements that Brandt is alleged to have given to the police, he basically argued with this guy, then he got angry, he was drinking at the time, so he decided to get into his car and chase down Cayler while he was running away from him, while he was fleeing the incident. And what is not subject to these reports is the fact that eventually he ended up running over the young man while he was in an alleyway while he was on the phone. Now, according to Brandt, the reason why he was so scared of this kid that he needed to get in his car, drive, chase him down, chase him into an alleyway is because this kid on the phone was a member of an extremist Republican group, and he was likely calling for all of the extremists to go after him. And, you know, obviously what you do in a situation like that is not get in your vehicle and drive away. It's obvious to, you know, chase them down with your car and then run them down because they could be calling people that might be on their way. And at that point in time, when all the extremist ultra MAGA Republicans show up, your life could be in danger theoretically, so you have to stop that.
Donald Trump and the MAGA Republicans represent an extremism that threatens the very foundations of our republic. MAGA Republicans do not respect the Constitution. They do not believe in the rule of law. They do not recognize the will of the people. MAGA Republicans have made their choice. They embrace anger. They thrive on chaos. They live not in the light of truth, but in the shadow of lies.
Now, unfortunately for Shannon Brandt, who bought into all this radical propaganda that people like President Joe Biden have been putting forward in recent weeks, that people like Anna Kasparian at the Young Turks, and other people on the left side of the political spectrum, both in politics and in the media, have been spouting, he wasn't calling his evil gang of ultra MAGA right-wing extremists to come and get him. He was calling his mother because he wanted a ride home, because he was scared, because a 41-year-old man was threatening him, decided to get into his vehicle and drive and attack him and ultimately kill him. Unfortunately, the mother could not make it there in time. Obviously, we're covering the story. It involves a death. This is what happened. But yeah, it's just absurd in every possible way that you would think that some little kid, some 18-year-old, is calling his gang of right-wing ultra-MAGA extremist Republicans to come and attack you. And the response to that, if you supposedly fear for your life, is to get into your car and then pursue this individual down an alleyway when he's clearly running away from you, calling for his mother, and running him down and then fleeing the scene of the accident. Now look, there are some very important caveats at this time that we need to go over. There's some stuff I need to discuss, because while these are the statements from Shannon Brandt that he gave to the police, and while the mother appears to be going along with the fact that her son was at least a conservative or at least a Republican, it needs to be noted that there is in fact some form of personal connection between the mother and Shannon Brandt. Reportedly, according to her, she did know this person. However, she does not know of any connection between this man and her son. I'm just putting that out there because right now we're very early on in the process, and a lot of people on my side of the political spectrum obviously see this story, obviously hear what Shannon Brandt has said himself or has reportedly said himself, and immediately jump to not only blaming this person, but blaming the left side of the political spectrum. However, anytime there's a personal connection, no matter how frivolous, and it's being noted in a bunch of different articles, we need to not rule out that the motivation behind this could somewhat be personal, even if it wasn't directly personal with the 18-year-old. It could have been personal with the mother. So I'm putting that out there at this time. As facts come out further in the process, we'll then discuss it. However, one of the things that I cannot abide by, one of the things that I'm not on board with, is the way that this case was charged. And to give you a little bit of a perspective, to talk about a similar situation, or what appeared to be a similar situation, the incident in Charlottesville where a person drove his car into a crowd of people and ended up killing one Heather Heyer is a situation that a lot of people have drawn comparisons to this, especially people on the left. People saying, well, what about this situation? What about Heather Heyer? How can you say that this is totally a left-wing thing when all of a sudden we have Heather Heyer from 2017, I think, as an example? Now, setting aside all of the differences between these two cases, that there were more people involved in the Charlottesville case, that was a general targeting rather than a personal targeting, etc., let's break down what ultimately ended up being charged in the James Fields case rather than what's going on in this particular case. Because in this case, we end up with the charge of aggravated vehicular homicide, which, by the way, carries a sentence of about 10 years, but since Shannon Brandt admits to being drunk, can actually be enhanced to 20 years. That's a pretty long sentence. That's some pretty serious charges, you might be thinking. However, James Fields Jr., the Charlottesville car driver, that person who drove his car and ultimately ended up resulting in the killing of another person, was initially facing charges that warranted the death penalty. In fact, he had to do a plea agreement where he signed on for 29 hate crimes because he was charged with all those other enhancing charges, and was sentenced to a total of 419 years. And the murder he was charged with was in fact charged as a murder, and he was sentenced on that 22 years to life in prison without the possibility of parole. So here you have an instance where people are saying, what about this guy? What about this person? That nobody on the right wing endorses, by the way. How can you say that this situation is any different? And you just look at the charges, and where we stand right now, they are completely different. This person is looking at far less serious charges, even though his attack obviously involved premeditation. He was chasing this person down, and he's admitted to the premeditated attack, according to reports, at this point in time. And not only did Shannon Brandt get charged with charges that actually have less of a serious sentence, his bond was set at $50,000. Now, we've talked about on this channel multiple different times how bond is essentially just the money that if you have it, you put it up and you can get it back later. However, you can throw 10% to a bail bondsman. You lose that 10% because some of you need that clarified out there. and they will put up the rest of it so that way you can be released. Well, it appears that that situation has occurred in the Shannon Brandt story. So this person who was drinking got into a political dispute, according to himself, got into his car, chased down an 18-year-old because he thought he was an extreme MAGA Republican, an extremist Republican group member, calling his extremists to, I guess, parachute from the sky to attack him, and ran him over, fled the scene of the crime. This guy's out right now at the time of me recording this video. He has been bonded out on these charges, and this is largely due to the fact that these charges were not escalated to any form of murder charge. A homicide charge, a vehicular homicide charge, an aggravated vehicular homicide charge is not murder. This is nonsensical.
A judge ordered Brandt held on $50,000 cash, which he objected, saying he's not a flight risk.
I have a job and a life and a house and things that I don't exactly want to see, go by the wayside. Family that are very important to me.
Now, to be clear, at the time of me recording this video, all of the law enforcement statements say that they don't have additional witnesses, they're still investigating, they're still trying to determine whatever happened in this case. All they have are the statements from Brandt on what happened, and obviously the forensic evidence, and obviously an 18-year-old kid, but it seems pretty shady that somebody who is basically admitting to a politically motivated murder based on absolutely objectively nonsensical points being put forward by the media and by the President of the United States is out before the family can even bury the victim of this crime. This guy got drunk, got in his car, stalked an 18-year-old over a political argument, and we're talking about how, oh, well, he's maybe not that big of a threat to people. It's not like political disagreements come up every single day. I'm sure it'll be totally fine. Obviously, this is one of the people that maybe you want to set a higher bond, maybe you want to charge effectively, maybe you want to hold in prison. You just trot him back out on the streets, say, here's your car, buddy. Please don't hit another 18-year-old. I'm sure anything will be fine. And by the way, this is true regardless of political motivation. If you're somebody with such a short temper, if you're somebody that quick to anger and that quick to prolonged anger, that an argument can cause you to jump in a car and chase somebody down and kill them, you are an ongoing, continuous threat to society. Even if we take out the political motivation of this situation and say it's personal motivation, if you're somebody who was just personally offended, let's say you didn't like the way this kid was talking to you, and you're willing to continue that anger into that situation, you're a genuine threat to society. If you're somebody who doesn't know that maybe when you're drinking, you shouldn't have the keys to your car ready to jump in and attack somebody, you're an ongoing threat to society.
A judge ordered Brandt held on $50,000 cash, which he objected, saying he's not a flight risk.
I have a job and a life and a house and things that I don't exactly want to see, go by the wayside. Family that are very important to me.
I mean, it's quite telling how Shannon Brandt can essentially admit to a premeditated murder to police and then go into his bail hearing, talk to the judge, and complain about how, oh, well, he has a job and he has a house, and he shouldn't really have to lose any of those things just because he decided to murder an 18-year-old, according to him, because he thought he was calling these extremist Republicans to come and attack him. I mean, why should he have to suffer consequences right now awaiting trial? Because, he's worked so hard for the things in his life, and all he did was murder an 18-year-old over a political disagreement, according to him, after he got in his car drunk and decided to chase him down into an alleyway because he thought he was defending himself by chasing this kid down into an alleyway in his vehicle and running him over. Honestly, there's not much further for me to go in terms of this story. There's nothing really more for me to state, except for the facts of the case and the fact that this person was out before the funeral even happened for this young man. I feel terrible for the family. If you feel bad for the family, they started a GoFundMe, and it's not banned by GoFundMe at this point, at this moment, so you can donate over there. I know a lot of people don't like GoFundMe, but this is the method that the people supporting him have chosen to use, so if you want to support this young man's family, feel free to do so. But yeah, it's just terrible, and it is another example of how, once again, when push comes to shove, there's completely different treatment based on the political parameters. The media is basically not covering this. I started Googling Trump supporter killed, and this didn't come up. The mainstream media has essentially been silent on this situation, and it's not hard to tell why. They were essentially putting the gas in this guy's tank to go and do what he did. And right now, according to the Post-Millennial, Shannon Brandt is busy deleting his social media posts, so you don't understand his ties and his political beliefs as they pertain to his motive in this situation. Even though he spelled out his motive, it turns out not really that interesting, don't want to talk about it, gotta delete my previous social media posts, because God forbid if people actually draw the connections that apparently he's just outright stated. Look, Jack Posobiec is trying to put pressure on North Dakota officials to get the charges escalated to where I think that they are proper, so I will support him in that campaign. If you want to contact your North Dakota officials and ask them why this person is being charged with a much lesser charge than he should be, considering he's admitted, according to the police, premeditation in his actions, stalking and killing an 18-year-old over political beliefs. But, you know, those are just my thoughts. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. If you like the video, you know what to do. Subscribe for more content. Follow me on all my social medias. Support me via the support links in the description box of this video. This has been me talking about a tragic story out of North Dakota. Till next time.